We can move on to inserting the form data into the database. We'll continue working in the register form component. At the top of the script block, we'll destructure the Firebase module for the database object. It's time to add data to the database. The first step for inserting data into the database is to select a collection. Let's discuss some terminology. There are 3 words you're going to hear me throw around. You may find these terms used frequently in the documentation. It's important we take the time to understand what they mean. The first term is bucket. We've already talked about buckets when we created the Firebase application. I want to recap what it is quickly. A bucket is a physical location where your data is stored. Firebase allows you to create multiple buckets if you're on a premium plan. You may want to do this if you want to keep certain data separate. We don't need that kind of flexibility at the moment. We can keep everything contained in one bucket. The second term is collection. Collections are objects in Firestore. They give you a way to organize data. You can think of them as categories. You don't want your data to get mixed with one another so carelessly. It's better to organize data into separate objects. We'll be able to filter and sort through them. For example, you can have a user's collection for storing user data. You can have another collection for blog posts, settings, song uploads, lyrics, etc. Firebase requires you to select a collection before performing any actions on the database. You cannot add data to the database until you choose a collection to add it to. The last term is documents. Documents are the individual records in a collection. It's the data you store in the database. Multiple documents can be stored in a single collection. We'll be mostly working with documents and collections in this course. We're going to select a collection in the Firebase file. We could do this in the register form component file, but we'll be working with the user's collection in multiple components. It's better to export the user collection so that it's accessible in all components. Below the variable definitions, I'm going to create a variable called user's collection. Its value will be the object returned by the db.collection function. The db.collection has one argument, which is the name of the collection to select. We currently don't have any collections in the database, but that's alright. The collection doesn't need to exist for Firebase to select it. We're going to call the collection users. This function will return an object with methods and properties for working with the user's collection. The next step is to export this collection. We'll have access to the user's collection in any component. Switch back to the register form component. In the import statement for the authentication object, we're going to change the DB object to the user's collection object. We only need the user's collection object. The purpose of importing the database object was to select the user's collection. However, we're already doing that inside the Firebase file. It's no longer necessary to have it imported. Back in the register function, we're going to use the user's collection. We'll call the add function. The add function will add a document to the collection. A document is the terminology used to describe an object inside a collection. The add function has one argument, which is the object to insert. We're going to pass in an object with the user data. We're not going to pass the values object directly to the function. We don't want to insert the password, confirm password, and TOS properties to the database. We can omit these. The password is already being stored in the authentication section. The TOS property was to ensure the user agreed to the terms of service on the front end. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to submit the form in the first place. We won't bother storing that type of data in the database. Let's add the name, email, age, and country properties to the object. The add function will return a promise. We're going to use async await syntax to make our code readable. Add the await keyword before the function call. we'll want to handle the error next. Wrap the request with a try-catch statement. In the catch statement, we're accepting the error parameter. We're going to use the same code we used for handling the authentication request. Copy and paste the code over to the new catch block. We're finished. By using the add function, we're able to insert additional information into the database. It's data we can't typically store in the authentication service. However, we are storing the email. Even though the authentication service already stores it, it's still handy to store it in the database. This will allow us to filter and sort through the data by email. Let's try testing if this works. We'll switch over to the browser. Make sure your developer tools are opened. We want to check for errors in the console. After verifying there aren't errors in the console, fill out the registration form with valid values. After submitting the form, we will receive a success message. The console will continue to log the user's credentials information without a problem. We'll want to verify if the data is inserted into the database by checking the Firebase console. In the Firebase console, navigate to the database page. If you already had it opened, then you should see the data because the database refreshes itself. If not, try manually refreshing the page. In the database, we'll find 3 new columns. On the left, we have a list of collections. Before submitting the request, there were no collections. By adding a document to the collection, Firebase will check if the collection exists. If it doesn't, it'll create it for you. We didn't have to take care of that ourselves. In the middle column, we have a list of documents in the collection. Documents are objects in a collection. In the right column, we'll find the data stored in a specific document. You can click on any of the documents to view its data. This collection is where we'll find the form data we submitted. All our data is present and accounted for. If we were to look at the name of the document, it's a random string. The random string is a generated unique ID for our data. This is important to understand. Databases need a way to track each individual record. This will allow us to pull a specific record or user if we ever need to. We could have provided an ID ourselves, but Firebase will create one for you if you don't provide one. We're going to let Firebase take care of assigning IDs for us.